Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for a new episode of Access All Areas. Today, I'm going to be talking with a very special guest. I'm going to be speaking with John Morris of Wheelchairtravel.org, one of the world's leading accessible travel websites. So please welcome John. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Cory. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing really well. How are you doing in this it's been quite a year for accessible travel, us in the industry. So, how are you now? Where are you planning to go next? What's it kind of been like for you?
Well, obviously, it's been sort of slow to reintegrate into society for many of us. To this point, I've taken a number of domestic trips around the U.S. I just the other day got back to Florida from St. Louis. Where I was seeing some baseball games, which was very exciting.
Nice.
But today, I'm actually headed abroad to Brazil, to Rio de Janeiro.
Oh wow! And so this will it be your first international trip, or?
Yes, yes. First international trip since February, right before the pandemic, when I was in Buenos Aires, actually.
Oh,
So
nice.
headed back to South America.
Yeah, I think we missed each other in Buenos Aires by like just a few days. Like we were there back to back, pretty much. I think. and
Yeah, you were on the cruise ship, I think, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was just hanging out in the city. But yeah, maybe I'm hoping that our paths will actually meet at some point in the future.
Yeah, hopefully so. And I'm definitely jealous about Brazil and can't wait to hear all about that. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely be following your social channels over the next few days for sure. But
Awesome.
to start us out, can you tell us a bit about who you are and about your travel website, wheelchairtravel.org?
Yeah, so I started wheelchairtravel.org about five years ago now. So it's been an interesting journey, in many respects of running a large website and documenting accessibility around the world. Got more than 50 travel guides to cities here in the US and, of course, abroad. And yeah, I really enjoy sharing this information with travelers and hearing from them about how they're using it to open the world to themselves.
Awesome. And I'm just showing some of your travel photos. We'll definitely get more into traveling later. I can't wait to hear about your experience on safari. And you've been all over the world. So we definitely have a lot to talk about when it comes to travel. But to start back from the beginning, I would love to talk about disability and a bit about around that. So can you please tell us how you joined the disability community?
Sure. Back in 2012, I had a car accident well, the car caught fire, and I was left ultimately a triple amputee and a burn survivor. If it hadn't been for the fire that erupted in the car, I would still have all of my limbs, but I'm three short now. Got my left hand, fortunately, and I've always been left-handed, so I didn't have to necessarily adapt in that way. But I spent a year in and out of the hospital, basically bedridden, and I was able to take my first trip in January of 2014. And it was an exciting time to be getting back out and traveling again because my alma mater, Florida State University, was playing in the national championship football game against Auburn University. And fortunately, as a reward, I guess, for my perseverance in getting back out there, they did win the championship. And so I had a fantastic experience on that first trip. But I also encountered a significant number of barriers. And planning the trip was not easy because as I'm sure you know, much of the world is yet to be discovered, I think, by disabled travel writers like ourselves. And, the resources out there for many destinations are limited. And so that is what led me to create my website. And some of the first things that I was sharing were about places that no one had written about. Beijing, China, being one of actually the first international destination that I visited. And so, I'm excited to see the space growing. We have new bloggers, I think, joining us every year. I'd say every day, but I don't think there are quite that many. But yeah, so I really enjoy the opportunity to share the world with others.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, when I started Curb Free with Cory Lee, it was back in like late 2013. There were only maybe a few other accessible travel bloggers out there, but now it seems like definitely more and more are popping up, which is great, really, because I mean, there's a lot of world to explore and write about. So while I think, we are competitors to some degree with like SEO and things, technical things like that, it's really great that more information is being available more than ever, which was definitely not out there when I was younger and just started traveling. So definitely glad to have your website out there. It's one that I refer to frequently. I was just reading an article this morning actually about like airports in the US that have adult changing tables. And it was on your website. And so, I mean, just the information like that is so powerful and good to know. And I even learned that Atlanta now finally has an adult changing table. So that's very good to learn this morning. So thank you for that.
Yeah, fantastic news. And I think really what inspires me perhaps more than anything to keep going is advocacy and speaking up about issues that affect me directly, and then also those that don't. I don't require an adult changing table, but many of my readers do, and I want to make sure that that facility is available here in the U.S. Just as it is in for instance, in the United Kingdom, where I think every airport has an adult changing table, and so that's something that we want to see. I just the other day saw a news article. A couple of brothers in Kentucky are trying to get adult changing tables. They specifically are interested in helping families with disabled children, but at rest areas on the highway. Oh. And I think that is an important thing to do as well. Ultimately, we'd like to see accessibility everywhere. And sort of my mantra is equal access everywhere is what we should be striving for. And so a lot of that comes through on my website. It's not always about the best places to eat or the best things to do. I pay a lot of attention to accessibility barriers and how we can overcome them.
Yeah, for sure. And before, becoming disabled and a wheelchair user, were you a big traveler before that, or did you kind of just start traveling after, you became a wheelchair user?
I was a big traveler before. When I was in college and in grad school, I would go away to faraway places on the weekends, and I didn't have a whole lot of time. A few years ago, I was writing about one of my favorite trips ever, probably my favorite trip ever, and maybe still to this day. I went to Alaska for 48 hours. My flight landed, I was on the ground for 48 hours, but I got to see so much. And that was in college, and it was easy for me because I didn't have to deal with, traveling with a 400-pound wheelchair. And so, it was sort of an awakening for me, coming into disability, something that I hadn't been really exposed to prior to my car accident, and realizing that the world is actually extremely different for those of us who have disabilities. And adapting to the environment is not always easy, but I think with determination, we're often able to find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you have enough determination, you can do almost anything. And Alaska in 48 hours sounds like something I would probably not do now, but I definitely would have done it back in my college days. So I
Yeah.
completely can feel you there. And since like your early travels, I know you mentioned some of your earliest travels as a wheelchair user were in like 2014. So do you think that accessibility has improved even in the past 7 years since then? And what would you still like to see be improved, like more than anything?
Well, yes and no. I think in a lot of areas there are advancements. I know that in 2014, when I started traveling, beach wheelchairs were very rare. And now, every day almost, I hear of a new city that's making that investment to provide it to travelers. And, there have been advancements at individual businesses that is sort of on a location by location basis. But I also think that there are things that, particularly with air travel, for instance, which is I've taken now more than 800 flights with my power wheelchair since 2014. And so I feel like I've gained a fairly large sample size to cast some judgments on how things are with air travel for wheelchair users. And one of the biggest challenges that I see coming up to us is that narrow body aircraft, that is, airplanes with a single aisle, are now going to be flying across the Atlantic Ocean. And these aircraft do not have the larger accessible lavatories that many of us have come to rely on long flights. And so I think that these are challenges because, when a new airplane is purchased, its service life is anywhere between 20 and 30 years and sometimes longer. And so, I think that there are a lot of challenges that we're facing and trying to work on to curtail in some fashion. But there's a lot of great things happening out there as well. So it's sort of a mixed bag. But I think by sharing the gems of accessibility that are out there, you and I are able to direct people to new opportunities that have value and provide access.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really, that's not good to hear about the aircrafts going to just single body, but, hopefully something will be done about it. I know that you're a huge advocate and I'm constantly trying to make the industry do better and be better. So thank you for that, for sure. And you've said you've taken over like 800 flights. So, I mean, we definitely can't cover every destination you've been to, but I wish we had the time to do that. But what are some of your favorite experiences that you've had in your travels? Like, if you could only name just a few, what would be your favorites and why?
Well, first and foremost, I think the trip that I've taken as a disabled person that really challenges the joy that I experienced in Alaska as a non-disabled person is my safari in Kenya. It was an incredibly transformational experience. This photo here wasn't obviously out in the safari wilderness, but it did. It was at a giraffe, the Nairobi Giraffe Center, where they rehabilitate injured animals. And I had the opportunity to interact with this giraffe here. He was pretty hungry, so the I guess food pellets that they gave me to feed him with, he enjoyed very much. But yeah, I think being out there, and I know that you've been on a safari as well, being out there and seeing nature unfold before your eyes is truly incredible, and it's just such a peaceful experience and an opportunity that I think many of us dream of having in our lives. And so being able to actually experience that was a humbling and incredible experience.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, your information about that, I remember like seeing that trip on social, and it just looked incredible. I have been on safari in South Africa, but not in Kenya. So it looks like something I definitely need to do. And are there any other travel experiences that really stand out as phenomenal?
Well, another, and I don't know if I provided a photo of this, so you'll have to maybe remind me of some that I did share. But one that I have really loved is last year when I went to Argentina. It was my second time there, and I was able to attend. I'm a huge tennis fan, and I was able to attend the Argentina Open, men's tennis ATP 250 tour, for those of you who are tennis fans out there. And I got to toss the coin before the doubles final.
Wow.
And so I went out onto the court, and it was, a really memorable experience.
Yeah, sounds very cool. And one experience that I did see you went on that I'm like tremendously jealous of was your trip to Egypt, and you actually rode a
Yes.
camel. So can you talk a bit about that trip maybe and what that was like? It's something I've always dreamed of.
Yeah, I've made a lot of trips to Cairo actually, and on my second trip there, I finally made it out to the pyramids at Giza, and I said, I have to get a photo on a camel.
Yeah.
And having only one hand and not having feet to place in the stirrups on the camel, on the saddle there, I was wobbling on top, and it was one of the most terrifying experiences I think that I've had. But it's incredible. The photo could have been better, but my taxi driver was shooting it. And, Cairo, Egypt is a very difficult place to visit. Um, and, I certainly had some difficulty there, but its beauty and the history and the people I actually found to be very wonderful. And yeah, so I highly recommend it. I have a pretty detailed travel guide for Cairo on my website, but I've also visited a resort town, Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt as well, and that was even more difficult than Cairo. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as a top destination, but Cairo is incredibly doable, and just with the proper amount of planning and informing yourself of what to expect there, I think is really the best advice that I can offer to people.
Yeah, if I had that picture with the on the camel in front of the pyramids, I mean, it would be my default picture for the rest of my life, probably. I mean, you said it's like not that great, and I'm sitting here like, what is he talking about? Like, it's epic.
Well, thank you. I think if I'm still looking maybe for that photo where I can just say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm done.
Right.
I can stop." But I haven't found it yet. It is a good one though.
Oh yeah, we do have some people tuning in that I want to say hello to. And if you are watching and have a question for John, definitely leave a comment and we'll ask him. So please let us know if you do. And you talked a lot about your great travel experiences, but are there any experiences that stand out maybe as like not so great? And if so, how did you deal with that on the spot?
Well, I think this was probably about 2 years ago now. I met my sister in Bogota, Colombia,
Wow.
and it's an interesting city. Accessibility, I thought, was actually quite good in terms of uh, I could get around on the sidewalks. But as you see there, I had a mid-wheel drive power wheelchair at the time. And so these chairs have casters on the front and back that are kind of small. I think the diameter is 6 inches. And in the city, the only transportation that I could find that was accessible was the city bus system. And it's an interesting system in that it's a BRT system, a bus rapid transit. And so they actually have bus stations, and the buses pull up to sort of the station platform, and you move from the station into the bus. Unfortunately, the gap between the buses and the stations can be quite significant. A number of times it was more than 3 or 4 inches, and so with the small size of my front casters, which enter first, it was challenging. There were some buses where I said, all right, it's not close enough. I can't get on this. And I actually, on one, I said, well, maybe if I just go with speed, I'll jump across it. It was a bad idea. In fact, I ended up sort of fell face first down into the floor of the bus.
Wow.
And that was challenging. Fortunately, I had my sister with me. But being someone who often travels alone, that's something that I kept in mind. And so when I purchased a new wheelchair, I guess a couple years ago now, I got a front a four-wheeled wheelchair. So it's got two big front wheels and larger casters on the back, and that's really helped me to negotiate some of those larger gaps on public transit, and that includes cities here in the United States where there's a gap between the station platform and, for instance, the subway train.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds like a scary experience, but I'm sure you won't be trying that again. So at least that was a learning opportunity as well, I guess.
Sure.
And what is like your top tip or tips even for other travelers that do use a wheelchair?
Well, I think number one is always do the research and have a plan. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty that's out there. Oh, that's in London. I love London. It's one of my favorite cities. But I think people need to do the work and try to find an answer, whatever that answer might be, whether it's a yes or a no on whether something is possible. Trying to figure out exactly how it can be organized. There are destinations over the course of my time as a wheelchair user that I haven't been able to figure out yet. And until I'm able to figure out those cities, I'm going to wait until I can sort out the answers. And really, I think secondly, and this sort of goes into what I was saying earlier about what happened in Bogota, there are going to be challenges that pop up. And, I'm sure you know this very well also. And I think having the perseverance and even the persistence to press forward despite some of the difficulties. I mean, I know for many of us, air travel is not enjoyable and it's frustrating and it puts us in a bad mood. But I try to flip the switch as soon as I land and focus on enjoying the opportunities that are in front of me. And so I think really it's about attitude and doing the work of planning.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head right there. It's all about having a positive attitude and just keeping in mind how amazing the destination is going to be once you get there, when it comes to air travel. And I know that you've flown a fair amount, like over the past few months. And do you have any tips for wheelchair users that like want to get back out there, but maybe are a little nervous about getting back on a plane right now. What's that experience kind of been like for you in the pandemic when it does come to air travel? And yeah, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to consider right now. I'm not sure exactly how many flights I've taken during the pandemic. I think it's probably over 20 now. Um, but I was traveling before I was vaccinated, and at that time, flight loads were very low.
Yeah.
But now that I'm traveling again and I do have the vaccine, I certainly feel a little more comfortable. For instance, in those interactions where close contact is unavoidable, like boarding the airplane. Um, but now the airplanes are full. They are very full, in fact. And I know that Delta for many months has been blocking the middle seat in the economy cabin. But that is coming to an end, I think, at the end of this month. And no other airlines are currently blocking the middle seat. And so you should anticipate, if you are planning to fly, about being in close contact with other people. I mean, inches away. And that may cause some people some consternation. They may be apprehensive about flying right now, and I think that that's a perfectly acceptable reaction. But I have faith in the vaccines, and I personally was blessed to receive the Moderna vaccine, and other members of my family have gotten the Pfizer vaccine. And none of us have, and I know that this isn't a scientific evidence, but none of us have come down with any complications. So I think the vaccine is safe, and I trust the health experts. But I also trust the data that shows that if you have been vaccinated, it's extremely unlikely to contract the virus. And I'm taking that reassurance that we've received from Dr. Fauci and from other medical professionals, that it is safe to get out there if you've been vaccinated. And I think also for those who either aren't vaccinated or won't be able to have access to the vaccine, as more of us are vaccinated, that should create a safer environment for other people to engage with the world. But I think I wrote an article on sort of tips for traveling and flying during the pandemic for those of us with disabilities, and it's sort of really just echoing what the CDC has told us, that where possible we should social distance. If possible, we should be wearing a mask, and really even 2 masks, as we've been told. So if that's a possibility, any shield that you can place between yourself and that outside environment where the virus could be in the air or on surfaces, trying to protect yourself from that, I think is critical. And so even though I've been vaccinated and even though I wear a mask, I'm still sanitizing my hand and trying to avoid large crowds of people. And I think that all of these are sort of best practices for keeping ourselves safe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I am doing the same thing. I've received both doses of Moderna, just like you, and I do feel more confident now, but still trying to take every precaution and safety measure that I can. Going to be getting on my first flight soon since the pandemic started, and I will be sharing all about that here on the HonDiscover social media channels in the next couple weeks. So definitely stay tuned for that if you're watching. And yeah, have fun traveling to Brazil tonight on your first international flight. I can't wait to hear all about it and what that whole flying process is going to be like. So I'll definitely be tuning in, as I said, to your social media channels. But post-COVID, like once the world is fully opened back up and we can go anywhere that we want. It sounds like a dream at this point, but I'm really looking forward to it. What is on the top of your travel bucket list?
Number one, absolutely, and I've been there. I haven't been as a wheelchair user yet. I've intended to so many times, but I want to go back to Rome.
Oh.
It is a special place for me, being a Catholic, and it is an incredible city. The food is fantastic. Anytime I'm in Italy, I love Italian food, and that's not necessarily the stuff that you get at Olive Garden or the dishes that are on the menu there, but really true Italian food. I think it's called the Eternal City, and there is so much incredible things to do there. I went before the wheelchair. When I went to Rome, I visited the Colosseum, of course, and I would just love to get a photo. And this might be the photo where I say, "All right, I'm done. This is good. This is what I've been looking for." But a photo of me in my wheelchair in the Colosseum. That is a shot that I would love to get. And now, look, I tell people, don't travel for a photo. Don't do that, because as you and I both know, travel is about experiences and not those Instagram moments. And I think that really what I'm most looking forward to about getting back into a normal travel environment is the opportunity to truly engage with people, where there's not that fear between us that he could be infected, I don't know, and we shouldn't get close, we shouldn't be shaking hands, we shouldn't be hugging, and that, I think, that physical contact, that closeness, that ease of encountering other people, and that concern about large crowds and groups of people is sort of what has made travel less enjoyable during the pandemic. And I think for me, that is what I'm most looking forward to re-engaging with.
Yeah, I can't wait for that either. I'm like so excited to finally, be vaccinated and getting back out there. But those experiences with like the locals and just interacting with people in our travels is definitely very, very missed, just like you said, and for sure what I'm looking the most forward to as well. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I hope you have a great time in Brazil. We'll all be tuning in, but can you please let everyone know where they can find you and connect with you online in the meantime?
Sure. The website is wheelchairtravel.org, and that's true also for Instagram and Facebook. Twitter has a character limit, so I'm WC Travel Org on Twitter. And I'm probably most active on Twitter. I really need to get better at the social media game. But I really do look forward to sharing more information about this trip to Rio. And I think that, in some respects, there are things that I do expect. I've had to get a COVID test before my flight tonight to prove that I'm safe to go. And there are strict protocols being enforced in Rio, especially in Brazil. Yeah. And I think there are even lockdowns at night, so I won't be going out late. But I also think that there are probably a lot of things that I'm not necessarily sure of or prepared for. And I look forward to sort of sharing this experience of international travel with others, disabled and non-disabled people who are considering getting back out there and taking that vacation.
Yeah, we'll all definitely tune in. And thank you so much for speaking with me today. It's been a lot of fun. I've loved learning all about your travels and some of your insights that you've shared with us. So, yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see each other in person very soon.
Awesome, Cory. It was good to be with you, and I hope you have a great trip to Costa Rica.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you later.
All right, goodbye.
And thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Access All Areas. We'll be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode with a very special guest. So until then, stay tuned here on the Discover social media channels. And if you are looking for accessible accommodations, definitely check out HonDiscover.com. Thanks. See you later.